Let's join Dan Vinovich for some tips on ice fishing.
We're out here the end of March. You can see around the edge of the lake, it's starting to thaw out. You know, you want to be real careful this time of year because we are getting a lot of ice melt. It's been, what, in the 40s for the last 4 or 5 days. A lot of the fishermen, they're ice fishermen, they call this last ice. Last ice is a great time to get out and get a few more fillets for the frying pan, not catch and release, but catch and grease. So we're out here trying to get a few fillets for the frying pan. It's a beautiful day, and you got the augers, so you get to start drilling.
I got the auger. Let's see if we can find some fish.
All right. What I'm using for tackle-wise, I'm using what's called a trick stick. This is another Northland tackle. It's actually just a smaller version. I know a lot of you are used to seeing the actual rod with the hand reels where you reel them in by hand. But these are just a lot better way to do it. This is a small, medium light little rod with a little spinning reel on it. I've got a heavier spoon on here. It's got the glow in the dark on one side. You know, this time of year when you're out here and you got snow over the ice, covering the ice and stuff like that, we actually want to get that glow on there. Charge it up. Normally, like today, we got the sun out, so we don't have to charge, but normally we'll use one of these little glow busters. It's a little LED light. What we'll do is we'll hit that right there and just work it up and down, and then it'll actually charge the bait. There he is. I had to sit it, Chuck. Feels like pretty good fish here.
Come right off the bottom?
Yeah, he's pretty close to the bottom. What I had to do, I had to jig it and then actually let it sit. Oh my, look at the size of that bluegill. I'm gonna tell you what. Look at my hand, that thing is a horse. What I've done is I've actually set it and hooked it right to a little stand. That way we can set these up. These are more what I use, I call actually a dead stick. It's something that I'm not jigging real hard. Kind of gonna let it sit there with a bait on it. What I'm using here is a spider ant. Now this has got actually in the water, you can see it, it's got the marabou on it, kind of puffs out, and it actually slows the descent of the jig. It's called a spider ant. What we're gonna do is we'll jig that up and down like that in those little, it almost looks like legs, and gives that jig just a little bit more action. But it also slows the fall. You know, and these fish are very lethargic this time of year with the cold weather, so that's kind of what they're looking at down there deep. But I'm gonna start up now. Right now, that little green marker is telling me that I'm about three inches off the bottom. Now up on the top of the rod, what I've got, because we let these sit a lot of times, this is a little spring strike indicator. Now when they're biting real soft like this, I know Chucklin's got one over there on his rod, but what that does is that gives very little resistance, and that we can tell when those very light biters are. So I'm right there at about the bottom now, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come up about 6 inches, 7 inches right there, and we're just gonna let that bait sit. Let it sit for a second. Remember, this one goes a lot slower, so we can't just jig it real fast like we were the forged minnow spoon. Then we can just sit that jig and let it hang right there with a bait on it. Thing about this little stand here, if you were to walk over, like I'm gonna walk over and check that rod now and jig it a little bit, but if something big, there you go. See the strike indicator now going down? There's one, there's a good fish. That's a real good fish. Now this is one of the benefits of using these little rods, because you can actually fight these fish like you're fighting right out of a boat, and that's what I'm used to. Oh my. Oh my goodness, Chuck, these things are unbelievable. But I mean, you can look at the size of these bluegills. I mean, and across the back and the size of their mouth. They're just huge bluegills, and they're so much fun, especially this time of year.
And if you wish to hire Dan Vinovich as a guide, he can be contacted at 309-347-1728 or email him at trolling@mtco.com.